Welcome to this week's episode of Pursuit Hockey Discussion, brought to you by the Pursuit Hockey Development. And I'm Austin Hoy, and I'll be joined by Carson Johnstone. This week, we're going to be talking to Kyle Evans, coach of the Campbell River Storm in the BCHL. We're going to talk to him about player development, how he became the head coach of that program, his plans for next season, along with kind of navigating the junior hockey world when the league that he coaches in just got designated as a Tier 3 Junior A program from Junior B last year. Then we're going to end the show with a little bit of soft white underbelly of the junior hockey world. We're going to chat about the NJHL, along with kind of a little bit of the SIJHL as well. Carson got into it a little bit this weekend, so we're going to chat about that. So stay tuned, and let's get her going.
Okay, that's good. Perfect.
All right, welcome to this interview, this week's episode of Pursuit Hockey Discussion. We're interviewing Kyle Evans, I guess is it okay to say former head coach of the Campbell River Storm? In the BCHL, but just kind of give the view or the listeners just a little bit about kind of your background. Obviously, you were just coaching Campbell River, but maybe a little bit before that, and just kind of how you've made yourself along here in your hockey career.
Yeah, definitely. So originally from Caledonia, Ontario, which for those who aren't familiar, small town about 15 minutes kind of south of Hamilton. There,
the Corvairs.
Grew up there my entire life. Played all my hockey close to home, whether it was playing locally, playing high school, playing college for the Mohawk College team. So, so not much of a playing career to kind of brag about, but kind of fell in love with coaching at an early age. Spent some time in high school and college, helping my younger brothers and coaching their teams with them and stuff, and kind of just fell in love with it. Got heavily involved in minor hockey, spent some time traveling around, living at different places, I should say. Just getting to see different associations, how different things work, and eventually found myself coaching in junior hockey on the island. So within junior, I started coaching with the Saanich. They were called the Braves when I started with them. They're called the Predators now. So I was there for almost 3 seasons, which was a great learning opportunity. Assistant coach. Moved on to the Cowichan Capitals, which is the BCHL team based out of Duncan. So spent a season with them, and then also took on some of the business manager roles as well. So kind of got a bit of a glimpse into, the whole picture of how a hockey team runs, as opposed to just the on ice and the hockey operation side of things. My partner and I then ended up moving kind of north on the island. So I ended up leaving the Capitals and got a job coaching with the AAA program out here. It was the North Island Silvertips. So coached the U17 team last season, and then that led me into this role with Campbell River this year.
Right on. We got to talk a little bit about, just quickly, before we move on to the Campbell River stuff and anything else, we got to talk quickly about the North Island Silvertips U18 AAA team last year. They might live in infamy. They got to be the only team that didn't win a game last year in U18 trips, right?
As far as I know, they were. Yeah.
That's tough. Not winning a game.
It was a tough year. The problem with the island and the problem with BC especially is you get a lot of kids that will leave home to go to, an academy, whether it's like Okanagan Hockey Academy or Burnaby Winter Club, that type of thing. So it's really tough on the island because kids are so spread out here. So the draw zone for the North Island program is going to be similar to what you guys would have with the Thistles, right? You're going to have kids who are coming 2 to 3 hours away potentially to play. So it's very easy for the kids and very easy for the parents to say, you know what, rather than spending 2 hours going one way to practice in the car every day, we're going to send our kid to Kelowna, where he's going to get, 2.5 hours on the ice every day and get all these off-ice workouts and that kind of stuff. So it's a really hard place to keep kids. When we had taken that program over last year, I know there were some issues with how it had been run in the past, and they didn't really have the greatest reputation to begin with. So we were hoping from an organization standpoint, we could build it back up. Didn't really go the way that we obviously intended it to. But I mean, we gave it our best. There's a lot of kids that worked pretty hard out there. But definitely going to live in infamy. I can't see there being any other team that finished winless that year.
Yeah.
You know what, though? Good on him. Matthew Spencer-Dahl was their starting goaltender.
Yeah. Hell of a goalie.
Who is one of our goaltenders this year. And he's got 2 Goaltender of the Month awards. So good for him.
Yeah, and there's a lot of guys that left that program this year to go play junior, and they're doing very well for themselves. So, I mean, just because your team doesn't have a lot of success, that it doesn't mean you're not going to have success in your career, right? And I think that was a big message we tried to portray to that guys. Like our U17 team, we struggled as well, and one of the things I tried to tell the guys was, look, just because you weren't on a very good team this year, it doesn't mean you're going to get looked down upon. It doesn't mean you're not going to have any opportunities. Like, this is 1 year. This is a year of development. You got what you could out of the year, and then you're going to move on. And when you're in a different situation, you're going to run into adversity. You're going to hit problems where some people might crumble because they've never been in that type of situation. And you can kind of laugh at them. Say, look, I went a whole season and didn't win a game, and I stuck through it. Like, we can get through a 2-game losing streak. Like, it's not a big deal. So I think the kids will be better off from it. I know it's a tough lesson to kind of teach them at that age, but I hope once they're, our age and hopefully still involved in the game, they understand, like, the lessons they were meant to learn out of that situation.
Yeah. So I just got a quick question for you, because that was last year, correct?
Yep.
So this year, right on the heels of that, you were with Campbell River Storm.
Yep.
And you guys had the best season in all of VI. Correct me if I'm wrong. So it's funny to be on both ends of the spectrum, 1 year after the other. You know what I mean? So, like, and maybe if you can just shed some light on what that's like and how different, different approaches you have to take, because they're still young players, junior players, U17 or U18, what are the approaches you take versus, like, coaching a team that's struggling versus a team that's on top?
Yeah, quite the contrast, right? I know I had a couple guys from my team last year that were on my team with the Storm this year, and some of the guys that, I AP'd with them with the team. And I remember there was one game I kind of looked at them and said, this is a bit more fun this year winning, eh? And so it's kind of full circle. I mean, I'm one of those kind of people that believe, if you put up with the tough times, you stick through it, you're going to get rewarded. And obviously having a great season with Campbell River was part reward, I guess, for me, so I'm obviously very happy about that. I think with the silver tips, with that whole experience, I think it really taught me to find the positives in bad situations and try to help portray those positives to your players, and just finding different ways to keep guys motivated, because when you're losing every game, you're showing up losing 7-0, 8-0. It can be very easy to throw the towel, and it can be very easy to just kind of give up. Yep. But I think that process kind of helped me understand how to keep guys going through that, and then also realize, hey, we lost 2 games in a row. This really isn't the end of the world, boys. Like, we pull through this. This isn't a big deal. So as much as I maybe didn't really need to do a ton of that this year, I think just staying even keel and not really getting too low in the lows and not getting too high in the highs, because, it can be just quickly, turning the other way. So,
yeah.
Very, very different situations for sure, but I think I learned a lot from both of them.
For sure. And I think one thing, like, I've had similar experiences coaching very bad teams, like young teams with, kids on it that we only won 2 games in tournaments all year. Aside from that, we didn't win. And then, other teams now where we're having some success. And I think it's weird. It's an interesting, because it's quite the dichotomy, but as well, the contrast and stuff. But you're still focused on small victories. Do you know what I mean? Like, as a team, you're focused on the small victories that ultimately become the large victories. But as a team that's doing terribly, you're like, guys, just focus on the small victories, the little stuff you can appreciate. So it's funny how, like, as much as it's different, you're kind of preaching similar stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. It's like, I know with us with Campbell River, like, there was a lot of little small challenges we'd give our guys, like, hey, we want to hit this number of shots against in a game, or we want to do this in a game. And I did the same thing with the silver tip team. It's like, we're going to try to hold them under this amount of shots, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And you give them those little things, those little victories to kind of build toward. And hey, maybe we lost 7-1, but 3 of the 4 goals we wanted to have for the game we hit. So it's finding the positives in the negative situation. I think it's a good skill to have, and I think these kids definitely will be able to do that now moving forward.
Right on.
So
Be right back.
Oh yeah.
Just gonna grab the DQ.
So we were, I'm just gonna stop it.
Where is the DQ in town?
Right beside the Tim Hortons. Were you here when the Tim Hortons was here?
Yeah.
So if you were to look at the Tim Hortons, you just go in down that street.
Oh, okay. So it's actually funny, when I lived there, we lived on that street, so that would have been dangerous. There was a DQ.
Yeah, big time.
That would have been dangerous. Between that and the Welly fried chicken and Tim Hortons, I don't know if I would have to leave the street.
Exactly.
What's that?
He said when he lived here, he lived on the street that Dairy Queen was on.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
You lived in Sioux Lookout too?
Just for a couple years, Kyle? Like 3 years?
2 years. It would have been 13 to 15.
Oh, wow.
So we lived, if you go down that street and then you go past, is it Ethel Street?
Yeah.
And then on the left-hand side, there's like a triplex that's right on the water. We lived there.
Okay.
So he caught the end of the Flyers.
No.
I was a year late.
Too
I
bad.
was a year late at the Flyers. I think it was the season before I got there was when they folded, because I think it was 2012 when the Flyers folded.
Yeah.
So it was actually Canada Day 2013 that I moved to town. So, but I've actually snagged some Flyers memorabilia that I found. I found a car flag.
Nice.
So I found that in the minor hockey room, so I took that, and I found one of the jerseys. So I actually have a Sioux Flyers jersey in my closet.
A nice one.
You got to send us a picture. Send us a picture of that.
You know what? Actually, low key, their last jersey was actually pretty nice.
Really?
Yeah, they had it used to be the Thunder Bay Flyers logo. Luke always talks about it.
Yeah, USHL.
Yeah.
Donnie Marinucci, my dad's buddy. That's all I think about every time I think of that team.
So anyways, just to kind of get back into the thing. So obviously with you taking over that job in the VI this year, tell us maybe a little bit about in terms of that BC hockey and designating the KI and the PJ and the VI as Junior A or Tier 3 Junior A, and kind of how that was handled administratively at the administrative level.
Yeah, crazy
how
year.
you handled it as a team, how it maybe made your recruiting a little bit different. Just kind of talk to your experience with that, because that's very unique. Your first year and you get kind of thrown that curveball.
Well, it was funny actually. The day that I got announced that I got the job there was the day that BC Hockey they announced a bunch of stuff was happening. So it's as soon as I got brought onto that, the whole game changed. Right,
thrown in the deep end.
It was something. I mean, for myself, I knew the BCHL had been planning on leaving for a while. So the whole transition to Junior A, we were wondering what was going to happen with that. We had heard rumblings of they were thinking about doing this, and this was probably going to happen, but the details were kind of scarce. We didn't know when. We didn't know if it was going to be this year, if it was going to be next year. And one of the consensus things, we all actually kind of thought it was going to be for the 24-25. So when they announced it, I think it was the middle of June when they announced it. We were, I wouldn't say caught off guard, but we were kind of surprised by it all. But I mean, a really cool experience to be a part of. They wanted to make sure they did it the right way, BC Hockey. They didn't want to rush things, and I still think there's some areas and maybe some carding things and little minor details where maybe they didn't hit the mark quite as much as they wanted to, but they're working on it. I think give it a few years and they'll have all those things ironed out for sure. Definitely made it weird for recruiting. Like I said, we kind of had a feeling this was happening anyway, so a lot of the recruits that we would talk to, we told them, hey, this could be coming down the line, whether it's this year, whether it's next year, this is something we're hoping to offer. So I think, being transparent with them and keeping these recruits in the loop and that kind of stuff helped us land them in the long run. But it was a weird year. A lot of commitments were coming a lot later in the summer than they typically would. We didn't quite get the same trickle-down effect as you typically would from a BCHL team. Like typically what would happen is guys would come out here, go through camp with our team, get their legs under them, get their timing under them, and then they would go to, the Nanaimo Clippers camp, for example. And if they made it, great. If they didn't make it, typically they'd come back and AP with one of the teams, and we'd have them for the season. Whereas a lot of guys this year, when they didn't make the BCHL, then they decided to go, to the SJ or to the MJ, those leagues. So a lot of teams' rosters weren't really full until later on in the season than they typically would be, and it just it made things difficult in terms of managing a roster. If you had some injuries, APs, that kind of stuff, but everyone was going through it at the same time together, so no one really had an advantage over it. And I think at the end of the day, as much as it maybe took us a little bit longer to get to that point, I think the league is a lot stronger than it ever has been. And hopefully it's going to trend in the right direction for years to come. Both our league, both the KI, the PJ, I hope they're trending in the right direction.
Yeah. That's an interesting situation they put you guys in organizationally and coaches as recruit. Like you're talking about, the intricacies and nuances of recruiting and all that. Like you're trying to be honest with people and sell your program, accurately, while not having the correct information to really sell it accurately, while not trying to slip up and say the wrong thing and have someone go, "Gotcha, you said the wrong thing." Do you know what I mean? Like that's a tough spot.
And I think in that situation, honesty was the best way we could approach it, and that's what we did.
Yeah.
I think that the biggest thing that we had going for us in Campbell River is that our program wasn't going to change. Whether we were considered Junior B, we were considered Junior A, we were still having our practice times, we were still having our skills ice, we were still having our off-ice program. We were still doing all of those things that we were going to do anyway. So
it's huge.
It didn't really affect us in terms of what we were going to do and how we were going to operate. Some other teams had to make some changes within the organization and step up their game a little bit, but we were doing everything how it needed to be done anyway.
And that really comes back to, honestly, like we've mentioned it, it's kind of been an overwhelming theme of our podcast too, is what does your organization offer? And like
that's all that matters.
You said that yourself, right? Like at the end of the day, it didn't matter because you said Campbell River was going to offer exactly the same thing tomorrow, if not yesterday, regardless of what league you were playing in, regardless of what level, regardless of what tier you were called, so that's really important. And I think, especially this is a good example of like people maybe losing sight of that a little bit, like, because I know from our perspective, right, and when we were trying to, because historically the KI, the VI, and the PJ have been pipelines. They're not pipelines, or spots where, these tier 2 CJ teams kind of out here, whether it be the MJ or us or the Noj, have historically tried to get players from, KI, and you can see like normally the transition is a player that can put up pretty decent numbers or is effective in the KI can come in and develop and be a really solid player in the SJ and the SI or the Noj. And we've seen that in the past. And this summer, you had some of those coaches basically telling their kids, or I don't want to say lying, but telling their kids, hey, we're Junior A now, we're not sending you here. And a lot of them, too, like you were saying, again, not necessarily lying, but I heard from you that there was a memo sent out that, these kids, until they get signed to this new Junior A team version of that team, they're not on Junior A cards, and they can be contacted by Junior A teams. And then you had guys in the KI basically trying to get other teams fined for tampering when they were doing nothing wrong by trying to contact these Junior B players. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I mean, that's those finer details that I don't know if maybe they had all figured out, or maybe they didn't necessarily think of when they were, releasing this plan. So I think for them, there's a lot of learning they needed to do from it. And, I think as the season went on, and I think as everybody kind of got used to the changes and everyone understood how things were going to work, I think it got a lot better there. And yeah, I know there's been guys that were, they're trying to hold players back and keep them with their teams that they're with now. And I see both sides to it. I see some guys are trying to build a program and, they want to hopefully push their team into this tier 1, they're calling it, and join the CJHL. And I think that there's other people where, they're bringing these kids in and you still want to develop them and push them on. So I think you're seeing two different attitudes, two different approaches to it. I mean, for me personally, the more players you can move on to a higher level, I think the better that's going to look for your program and the more kids that are going to want to come play for you. I think people need to be honest with themselves, and as much as we've seen the level of play in this league go up, and I would expect we're going to see that trajectory continue. We're still not on par with, the AJ or the SJ or those type of leagues. So until we get to that point, I still think you should be trying to move guys on and trying to do what's best for them in their development.
For sure.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So I guess just to transition from that, this was your first season as a junior head coach.
Yep.
So obviously some things, probably unexpected surprises, maybe things that you implemented that you thought you did effectively, maybe some things you might do differently going into next year. Just kind of maybe talk us through that first season, because it is huge. Carson, you're in your second season now.
Yeah. But I had a lot of reflection over the summer, and I can tell Austin, I told him personally over last summer, losing the playoffs hurt for me. But anyways, I'll let you talk on that. But yeah, I thought a lot over the summer.
Yeah, no, and I mean, for me, the reflection's already kind of begun, right? Like we, like you kind of touched on, we had won the regular season title, high expectations heading into playoffs, and unfortunately, due to a few injuries and, some guys trying to play through some stuff, we were a little bit worn down. We ran into a really tough Carey Park team that was not your typical 8 seed. So our playoff run got cut a little bit shorter. So there's been a bit more time to kind of reflect and maybe a little bit earlier than I would have liked. But, overall it was a hell of a learning opportunity, right? Something you do for the first time, it's never going to be perfect. You always need to be learning from it. And that's the approach that I tried to take it in, in pretty much every situation, right? You go through as an assistant coach and you see things that maybe your head coach is doing well, maybe things you would do differently. And, you finally get the chance to implement it the way you want to do it. And sometimes it works just how you drew it up. And sometimes, it maybe doesn't work the same way you thought it would. So it's a lot of reflection, a lot of evaluating, how things went. And, at the end of the day, I would say it was pretty successful. Not many teams can say that they won their league. Not many rookie coaches can say that they won the regular season title. So I'm obviously very proud of that fact. You're
awesome,
always a little weary coming in year one. You got some returning guys that you've never met before, never coached before. So always weary if they're going to buy into how you're trying to do things and if they're going to adapt to the changes you want to make and that kind of stuff. And I had a fantastic group of returning vets. Like they were bought in from day one, and they made the transition very easy for myself. They made it very easy for a lot of the new kids that we recruited and for a lot of the, the guys that were joining the program. So all in all, yeah, I mean, obviously there's going to be some bumps along the way, learning how to balance, player needs, player egos, the expectations of owners, staff needs, that type of stuff. It's not always easy to balance that and try to make it work for everybody. And there's times, you can't make everybody happy, but I think at the end of the day, some little things I do differently. Yeah, maybe when we implemented some structure, maybe some teaching points and that type of stuff. But overall, very happy with how things have went. I'm excited for the future.
Right on.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, you guys had a great year.
Now, in terms of, I guess, just kind of now that you've kind of seen, if you want to call it, would you call the VI, I guess, tier 3 now? Is that what you kind of refer to it as, or what would you refer to it as?
It's tough. I mean, in realistically, yes. I know they've come out with this whole tier 1, tier 2 mantra, but it doesn't really align with how everyone else labels junior hockey. So. Yeah. I guess for now, if you want to compare it to like the CJ, like if you were calling the teams in the CJHL tier 2, then yeah, we'd probably be a tier 3.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, that kind of goes into my next question. So you've kind of seen, with the Capitals in the BCHL, obviously a little bit different situation when they were in the BCHL. That was when they were part of the CJ.
Yeah.
But you saw those players pretty close up, and now obviously working with your team. How would you say, is there anything, really that stands out differently between the players that play in the VI or the KI or the PJ compared to players that play in the BC? What would you say are the things that really separates those players?
Yeah, I would have to say, obviously this is going to be a general observation. I can't paint every kid with the same brush. Obviously, there's going to be outliers in each group. But, what I would say the biggest thing is going to be the focus away from the rink. What are you doing when nobody's watching, right? Are you sticking to your diet that you need to stick to? Are you getting to the gym as much as you need to? Going to bed on time? Are you focusing on your schoolwork? Are you doing all those things, or are you cheating? Are you going to Dairy Queen with the boys every night?
Hey.
Are you skipping out on workouts? And because I think from seeing those guys at that level, that can be the difference, especially when you make that jump to college hockey, because you need to learn how to manage your time, and you need to stay disciplined to your routine and all of that stuff. And if you can't do it at this level, are you going to be able to do it at that next level, right? So I think that was one of the big things, is just, the work that these guys put in behind the scenes, and working on the small little details, right? Like, I know a lot of guys that I would work with Cowichan, instead of doing, pep drills and shootouts, they wanted to work on their face-off techniques. They wanted to work on their D-zone routes. They wanted to work on their retrievals, their board battles, throwing the puck off the glass and getting it out, right? So just those little plays, those little details that we don't think is sexy. We don't think it's, fun to necessarily practice. Those guys are out there every day working on that kind of stuff and making sure that, hey, if I get the puck on the wall and I need to throw it off the glass, I'm going to do it perfectly every time, because that could be the difference between, winning and losing in a game, right? So I think those attention to those small details is a big one. And then I also just think the internal motivation for a lot of these tier 2 guys is sometimes higher than it is for the tier 3 guys. I heard an expression once. It's like a have to versus get to mentality.
Yeah.
It's like, are you dreading going to the gym, or are you excited to go to the gym, right? Are you dreading going to practice and you're only doing it because you have to, or are you excited to go there and do that, right? And I think a lot of the overwhelming majority of tier 2 players will have that get to mentality, where they're excited to go to the gym, they're excited to put in the extra work, whereas, and again, I don't want to paint all tier 3 players with this brush, because there's some great ones out there. But sometimes, you do have to motivate them a little bit more to get into the gym, and you do have to baby them through those little stuff. So not always the case necessarily, but I think the tier 2 guys, definitely that internal motivation is what, it's going to drive them, and you see that a lot more at that level.
Well, yeah, you've even said, like, you get to a point where if you're still playing hockey at a competitive level when you're 18, you've passed a bar somewhere that shows that you at least have somewhat of a commitment, right? And it's not necessarily how good of a hockey player you are. It's almost never those things, especially.
No, but you're like, I think mainly like the bar that I look at, or not the bar, but like a lot of the factors. Okay, at 18, if you're still interested, or even 17, let's call it 17. At 17, if you're still at somewhat committed, trying to make the next level, trying to get better, trying to do these things, like, man, your commitment off the ice, like, better be great, or it's senseless, because like, it's otherwise it's just a waste. Do you know what I mean? Like, because there's a lot of money, there's a lot of things like just going into these kids, and that just seems to be the age, like the cutoff. Aside from that, the interested kids stay. The disinterested kids, play Fortnite and do whatever else, and interested in women and booze and all that stuff, right? So,
and I know at our level as well. Obviously it costs a little bit more to play at our level than it does BCHL. So, some guys are working part-time jobs. Sometimes guys are going to school and trying to juggle class loads and stuff. So there's times they don't always have, that same amount of time and ability to put that effort in. Sometimes whether, it comes down to ice time or gym pass or something like that. But the guys who really want it and the guys who are truly motivated, they find a way around that stuff, right? Like if your team will 4 hours of ice a week, some of those guys will buy a pair of rollerblades and go play some inline somewhere.
Yeah.
There's ways around certain things, and I think you don't always see that necessarily, them trying to overcome those hurdles at that level. But I mean, they do sometimes, and to a lot of guys' credit, like I had a lot of guys who were in school. I had a lot of guys who had part-time jobs, and they did what they needed to do to get into the gym when they needed to be there and make practice and try to put the extra work in when they can. So it's not always easy for everybody, but I think as long as you're putting in that effort, it's going to help you get where you want to go. And
yeah, for sure. No, absolutely.
More.
You got to be honest with yourself too. Like, I mean, you can't just like some kids will cry like, oh, well, I don't have the time, or I don't have the money, or I can't afford it, or this or that. But like, I see those same guys that are going to work and doing those extra things, and like it appears that they got, but they also then go spend that paycheck at the bar. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, it's funny. Like, there's the guys that sacrifice the other stuff are the ones that ultimately always want it, I guess, right? Like, I mean, just to reinforce that even further, like there's guys that think they're doing the right things, but you know, they're really ultimately not at the end of the day. It's full sacrifice to be an elite guy.
100%, and I think it's on us as coaches as well to show them what doing the right things is, because sometimes guys don't realize they're doing the wrong things. Sometimes guys genuinely think that they're doing the right things, and they just haven't been told or haven't been shown, and that's what's great about this level, is because sometimes you can inspire guys to do better, and sometimes guys have that light bulb aha moment, and yeah.
Right on. Yeah, well, thanks for taking the time to sit down with us, Kyle. This was awesome. I guess depending on how I want it, you're not returning to Campbell River next year.
Nope.
We won't necessarily discuss that, but you're hoping to get yourself into another head coaching role for next year.
Yeah, we'll see what kind of opportunities come up, right? I know a lot of leagues are still playing, a lot of teams are still kind of going, so. Yeah. We'll see what happens. I mean, there's some options I'm considering at this point, but we'll see what happens, right?
Right on. Well, thanks again, Kyle, and we'll be in touch.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Right on, thanks for coming on, man.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Thanks again to Kyle for coming onto the show and. Kind of giving his perspective out on the Junior B/Tier 3 Junior A, however you want to describe it as now.
Yeah, the BC loop. We'll just call it the BC hockey. We'll just say his perspective on BC hockey, because that whole thing is just kind of, it's not in shambles, but it's morphing, evolving. It's evolving.
Evolving. So, with that being said, my favorite league is now entering the playoffs.
Yep.
The NJHL, formerly the GMHL West. Playoffs started yesterday. Fox Creek Ice Kings and the Vulcan Rampage got off to a pretty solid game. Northern Alberta Lightning. The Rampage did not make the playoffs because they only played 36 games, so my mistake. But what I want to talk about before that is we've talked about him in the past. Friend of the show. Well, I wish he was friend of the show.
Maybe future friend of the show if we're lucky.
Carson Baptiste finished off his season with. Now I know you know this.
I know,
but
I wish I didn't.
I wish you didn't too. So, 37 games. 100 goals, 79 assists, good for 179 points, which for the guys doing quick math, that's 4.8 points a game.
Yeah. Dude, 100 Genos is... Honest to God, I don't think there's a world, there's not any men's league out there that like serious men's league where guys are like actually playing hockey.
Yeah.
39 games, I don't ever come close to scoring 100 goals. Never. That is absurd. That's an absurd amount of goals in 39 games in any league.
37.
37 games, minus 2 games. It's outrageous. Good on him. That seems like the guy belongs at Penn State, not fucking Edson. What's he doing?
With that being, like... Put that into context. Wayne Gretzky has the most goals in an NHL season at 92.
Wow.
That's 8 more in 50 games less. It's a lot of goals.
I mean, the NHL. But
it's only one letter off.
I know. I did just say any league. That's like very, very tough to do. It's great because that just gives you perspective, right? Like 92 goals. A goal a game is like the best ever. Slightly better than a goal a game is the best ever in the NHL. This guy had fucking 4 goals a game or 3 goals a game or something.
I'd also like to have,
language, but damn.
In more NJHL news, I said the playoffs started. They also announced their awards. Now, a little interesting, they announced their awards 2 weeks before the end of the season.
Okay.
Thought that was a little strange. Before the season's over, they announced their awards.
Hey.
Interesting. They also, players voted in a Google form for the award winners. What are your thoughts on that? I actually, hot take, I think that's an awesome idea.
Great idea.
Yeah.
Because everyone gets one submission through your email, right?
Yep.
And then like once it's accounted for, it's accounted for.
Yeah. I actually low-key think it's a great idea.
I think it's a great idea too because these awards are junk in most leagues, unfortunately. I guess that could be part of the topic, the soft white underbelly here, but a lot of these awards, like, and I even remember just being younger and like awards that happened at school and like certain things. There's always like reasons that some of these awards are given out.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? Like that are not just the merit of like the award. Do you know what I mean? Like there's other factors that are always involved. So like it upsets people. It rubs people the wrong way sometimes for some of these accolades. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of those things that like really shouldn't matter, but by doing it, you're just gonna alienate somebody. Doesn't matter who that person is.
However, if you do the Google form thing, guess what? Everybody voted. I think that's easier to accept.
Yep.
Because then you can't be like, well, this guy didn't vote for me because that. Well, that guy doesn't like me and it's personal, blah, blah, blah. No, well, guess what? The whole league didn't like you. You know, that I feel like as a person, like that's easier to accept. Do you know what I mean?
It wasn't some guy, it wasn't some ref that had something out for you. It was every other guy in the league, right? So,
yeah.
Now, the league didn't do a very good job of telling people that's how they voted, because a lot of parents were really upset at the award winners. So much so to the point, the only reason I know that the players voted was because the High Prairie Red Wings had to put on their Facebook. Just for the record, the player awards are voted on by the players. Management has no influence on who wins any of the awards in the league. So parents, please stop messaging our Facebook page because your child didn't win an award.
Dude. You know what, though? That's kind of like... I'm not surprised.
I love it. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, dude. Honestly, like, okay, at what age do you stop talking to the coach? Like, honestly, like, I mean, I know minor hockey, even still, you should pick and choose the times you're talking to your son's coach or daughter or child's coach.
100%.
You should be very cautious, even at the minor hockey level. But at the junior hockey level, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to say there's not ever. Rarely, injuries, certain things, mental health, when you got to get involved. But when it comes to hockey or playing time or like even suggestions or like advice about my son's career, like tell your fucking son to walk through the door and have that discussion with me. I'm not telling you so you can go put your spin on it and tell him. Like, tell him to come learn from me, the coach, that, what he's supposed to do or what he's thinking, or have that discussion with me. You're protecting your son or daughter. You may think you're helping by talking to the coach, but you're protecting them from having difficult discussions, which is a life skill, not a hockey thing. It's much to do with a life skill.
Agreed. And you know what? We've said this in the past, like, how much more interested are we in a player if they reach out to us versus that player's advisor?
Dude. Night and day. And I that's why even when I started doing this as an advisor, like with Pursuit or whatever, when I was advising players, I wasn't the type that would be like, okay, give me all your information so I can email blast it off to everybody and this and this and this. Like, as an advisor, I felt like, okay, well, I'm here to give you my advice and lend an ear and like, use my experience to help guide you. Like, it's not necessarily like, of course it helps to have connections and like I can make a couple phone calls, this, that, but I'm not here to serve you. I'm not here to call every team and get you a spot on a team. Like, What are you talking about? I can't want it more than you. You don't pay an advisor to want it more than you.
And I think, unfortunately, that's something that is all too common, actually.
All the time.
It's basically, they just pay you, and it's like, make me a junior player.
Well, what did you get me?
Yeah.
You didn't get me anything. You didn't get it done for me. You didn't get me a spot. What are you talking about? You didn't get the spot.
Okay.
Okay.
We can have a bit of a game now.
Uh-oh.
With the NJHL season being over.
Okay.
Before we go on to talk about the one more, like, I guess if we want to discuss it, the more serious thing in the White Hawk, I want to ask you. 6 teams in the NJHL. They all played around 40 games. How many players averaged more than 2 points a game? That player had to have played 20 games. How many players do you think averaged more than 2 points a game?
How many players play in the whole league? Do you know,
6
roughly?
teams. I'd imagine there's probably about 140.
Okay.
Well, according to EP, 183 players played a game in the
I hope
NJHL.
it's less than 5. It's probably not.
I'm going to tell you right now, it's more
Is
than
it
5.
between 5 and 10?
Nope.
Is it between 10 and 15?
Yep.
Okay, it's 13.
It's 12.
I have to went on a limb, right in the middle.
More, but I had to cut it off at guys with 20 games played. Because, you can't, 9 games and 18 points is still a lot.
Yeah.
But there's a couple guys on here, they played 6 games and they had 21 points. What the fuck is going on with that kid? That kid wasn't good enough.
Can you sort by points per game? Is that what you've done? Sort by points per game and just see who has the highest points per game, no matter games played, whatever, and just list those guys.
So it's obviously our boy, CB, Carson Baptiste, 4.8. Then we got Keegan Moberly, who played 4 games for the High Prairie Red Wings. Keenan Moberly. 4 games for the High Prairie Red Wings. 16 points.
No slouch.
No, I'm actually gonna pull him up because he's worth a look.
Yeah, he's worth all these guys.
Then we got the guy who actually, in a normal, real world, this guy is your going away MVP of the NJHL. But because the Wayne Gretzky of the NJHL exists, he didn't win it. This is like when Wayne Gretzky was dominating the NHL. How many guys were just like, "Fuck"? If Wayne Gretzky wasn't here, I'd be the best player in the league. I'd be this. Like Connor McDavid,
Brett Hull.
Realistically, Nathan McKinnon, I think doesn't get enough. He doesn't get as
Depends who you're talking to, but yes.
You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
Because Connor McDavid is so talked about.
97's the guy.
So, the Nathan McKinnon of the NJHL. If Carson Baptiste is the Connor McDavid, Dayton Shantz is the Nate McKinnon.
What did he finish with? Yeah.
123 points in 36 games. That's insane.
Yeah.
Didn't even come within 50 of Baptiste.
Not on the same team or not?
Different team.
Different team. Wow.
Team.
So two nice performances.
Yeah.
Okay, and now I'm interested. Go to Dayton's team. Who's the next closest guy on his team?
See, that's the thing. Edson's got that big time high end guy with the 179. Then they got a guy at 100, and then past that it's a bunch of pretty low. High Prairie's they got depth. If I'm talking about a 7-game series, if I'm handicapping the NJHL
We're
now,
getting close to the playoffs, so maybe let's talk about it. Who's winning?
7-game series, I'm taking High Prairie. They got the pedigree. They got back to back chips in this league. Whether you want to call it the NJ or it was the GMHL West before, but they're back to back chips.
You're taking High Prairie?
I'm taking High Prairie 7-game series.
I'm taking Carson Baptiste.
That is good. Based off of what's happened in this league, though, because I'm going to get to the Pims here in a second.
I'm not taking Edson.
Okay, so High Prairie's got Dayton Shantz at 123, Braden Auger at 98, Caden Desjardins at 88, then a D-man with 66 and 26. Insane. Cody Waller, who's also a D-man with 53 and 35.
Hang on. How old is this D-man with 66 points in 26 games? Probably he's got to be 21, eh?
Might be 22. I know that Waller kid's 21.
Yeah.
Kid's in 05, actually.
Interesting.
This is where you really see the dichotomy of the leagues.
Okay.
This guy started for the Nanaimo Buccaneers. That team,
in the VI?
I think won 2 games this year in the VI.
Okay.
17 games, 1 pit. NJHL 26 games, 66 pits.
Oh boy, that's tough. That's making the 179 less impressive.
A little bit, yeah.
No disrespect to, what's that team?
The Edson Eagles?
No, the other one.
Oh, the Nanaimo Buccaneers?
Yeah. I mean, I guess lots of respect to them because that's a good, it's a decent league.
Yeah.
He got 1 point, so okay. But to put up 66 points in 26 games.
After literally not being able to...
That's some insight right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really puts things into perspective.
Yeah.
So Edson's got 179, then 100, and then it goes down into the 70s. So if we're handicapping, here's the Pims. Well, let's talk about goal differential first quickly, and then we'll talk about Pims, and then we'll move off of it.
Okay.
Don't want to talk about it for too long. So, Edson Eagles' average score in their game this year. They on average scored 9.5 goals a game. And they allowed...
They couldn't get to 10, eh?
No.
Bums.
They allowed about 3 goals a game. So they're winning on average 9-3. High Prairie was scoring about 7 goals a game. And they were letting in 4 goals a game. So they're winning 7-4. Now, past that, every other team has at least a minus 61 goal differential past that.
Yeah.
And then, okay, Edson Eagles led the league in PIMs. I'm gonna pull up the SI so we can I want you to guess how many PIMs. So, in our league,
And Kenora led the league in PIMS with 390 something, or is leading currently.
So Kenora's got 1,200 PIMs in 46 games.
Oh yeah, 300 something penalties, is it?
Yeah, this is just straight up minutes.
Yeah. I think that would have been time shorthanded.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So yeah, minutes 1,200. Holy crap.
So guess how many Edsons got? They're the leaders. So not only did they dominate the league,
How many games?
42.
42 games. They've played.
46.
Kenora's played 46. Okay. Edson has. I hope it's not more than 1,800, which would be outrageous as it is.
It's not. It's 1,500 though.
Okay.
That's still crazy.
Yeah, that's still a lot, but 1,200's a lot, dude.
1,200 is a lot.
Kenora's been penalized like crazy this year.
Especially when you consider Dryden only has 1,008.
Yeah, and that's
And they're
known to be penalized team perennially.
Yeah, so it's Kenora at 12, Dryden at just over the century mark. Then you got Fort at 986, Cam River at 939. Then there's Red Lake at 910, Wisconsin at 849, and then us and Thunder Bay. 754 for them and 708 for us. Thunder Bay doesn't get penalized very often. Neither do we.
So we're the least penalized team in the league.
We are. Yep.
I take pride in that a little bit. Mm-hmm. I mean, some people would call me a pussy and call me soft, but I really don't care because you don't win hockey games by sitting in the box.
Exactly. Now, do we want to talk about the 17 gamer?
Yeah, let's do it. While we're talking about the SI a little bit, we talk about the soft white underbelly of hockey. And this is just unfortunate. I'm going to get a little personal. There's a player on our team that's been hurt by the same team 3 times, 3 to 4, or maybe even 5 times in the past 2 years that I've been coaching here.
I think realistically 5 times, I think you could say that.
5 times easily injured by the same hockey team, 3 of which are direct cross checks to the neck of this hockey player. And then a kick on top of that as well. So it's a little bit, shocking to any hockey fan, obviously, to see that stuff go on, and just really disappointing for this hockey player, and just to see that stuff going on. The kid is just distraught, just to be targeted and to feel targeted. I'm not going to make that claim, but he feels targeted. He came to me and he's just like, it's kind of starts to destroy your love of the game, and you'd hate to. In a way, it almost feels like they win, when they do that stuff, because he's hell of a player and one of the best in the league, and they're obviously going after him to try and break his spirit, and to see it starting to break him down is really, almost tear-jerking as a coach. It's really tough. It's emotional.
It is. It honestly is, and it's unfortunate that this is the point it's come to, right? And it's in a spot, too, where you can talk about whoever, but you mentioned over 2 years, 3 to 4 different players, that have done it. So, this isn't a case of
one guy hates another guy.
Exactly. This is obviously
3 or 4 guys hate the same one guy that happens to be a great player that scores a lot against them. That's interesting.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
It's interesting, right? And so we just found out. I think it'll be live by the time this thing goes live on Friday. But biggest suspension, I want to say maybe in SIJHL history, honestly.
Who knows?
It's close.
Andrew Lilly did play in the league.
Andrew Lee did play in the league. I got to look this up. I'm disappointed we didn't get this information till an hour ago, because I wanted to see if there's a way to look up So you got 17 games, which, I mean, when you talk about the NHL, and there's been lots of other ones, but when you consider the fact that a junior season's maximum 50-ish games, 17 is a lot.
Yep.
And their coach also got suspended for 2 games.
Yeah. I mean, we won't. That's let's leave it at that.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about how it's beyond the player's responsibility. That's the only thing the last thing I'm about to say about this is it's not the player's responsibility anymore. Okay? Because guess what? The first time he got a cross check to the neck, the guy got 5 games or something. The second time, I think the guy got 4 or 5 games. This time, the guy's going to get so many games or whatever, but then it's been a different player every time. So it's not like someone's learned anything or whatever. It's just, well, I guess take the next guy and, see what happens with him or whatever. But it's just, it seems, it's beyond being a player's fault. There has to be something else, like, I guess, for accountability. Like this poor hockey player now can't even go to that building without feeling like he's going to get his head taken off.
Yep.
Literally. So really sad that people can go to sleep at night and be okay with themselves, knowing that they're just doing those things that have nothing to do with winning a hockey game and everything to do with being macho and bravado and thinking that we're something we're not. So that's what disappoints me.
Yeah, the worst part is, like, realistically, it's not even like we're sending a message in that game. Like, it's all just an investment, essentially, because every time it's happened, like, very rarely has the game not been decided by the time that's happened, right? Like,
almost every time. It's never been like this is an intense play.
Period. It's always
game's over.
Yeah, whether like that team is winning the game or our team is winning the game, it doesn't matter. Like the one, like last year it was more them beating us and the game would be over and, like, we're still taking liberties. Like, what's the point? You got it, boys. Like,
yeah, can you not just play with class and play hard and keep your nose clean and just, anyways, that doesn't matter. That's our opinion. That as far as those things go, and I know there's old school guys and hard nosed guys and this and that, but this is beyond old school. This is beyond hard nosed. This is beyond anything sensible. This is a kid getting a cross check to the side or front of his neck every time he plays a hockey game in a certain building, and from different assailants
every time. Well, with the only exception of the same guy last year.
Pardon me?
Only difference being the same guy last year.
Oh, twice.
Yeah.
Same guy twice last year, and then this year 2 different guys.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
But it's unfortunate. The only thing now, I guess, is at least they're starting to do something about it. That's something that is nice.
Sure. The positive side is that, you know what, the league at least has done something now very significant. It's impossible to be ignored. This is 3 instances from 3 different people. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like, okay, well, the league's doing, they have to. They don't have a choice here. Like, they literally are kind of left with their hands tied with this one, right? I mean, but they should. You know what I mean? Like, rightfully so. Okay, buy anything, and, like, it's like science, right? You test it once, okay. You test it twice, okay. You test it 3 times, you got your answer, right? So it's like, shitty thing happens, all right. Second shitty thing happens, okay, it's hockey. Third shitty thing happens, all right, we're seeing a pattern here, right?
Yep.
So I think that's fair to give our league the credit they deserve.
Exactly.
They have to look at every situation without bias, and I think they've done the best they could with a tough situation the past couple of years.
Honestly, like, we've been on now being in it now for close to 2 years now. I mean, we've had situations where things have gone our way and things haven't, and
like my ejection the other night. We'll talk about that after. Anyways, sorry. Please continue.
No, I was just gonna say, like, we've had situations, right, and it's like every junior league when it's not like the NHL where there's everyone watching every game all the time. Like, we had a situation earlier this season where one of our pretty important players got slew-footed and missed by the referee, which happens even in the NHL. It happens, and even to us. I didn't see it. You really didn't even see it.
No, I didn't. I thought our guy lost a battle, and I was kind of upset, actually.
And it turned out that the slew foot broke his leg.
Yeah.
And we submitted it, and the league did the right thing. They penalized it properly, and then that player came back and did, unfortunately, the same thing, and is now out of the league because of it. So
2 slew foots.
They have done the right thing in making sure it, and now obviously they've made it so 17 game suspension with only 2 games left in the regular season. It would be hard pressed for him to get back into it. That's the end of his junior career, realistically.
Yeah, pretty well. It's darn close.
Yeah. So you know what they have done. We are frustrated. There's lots of times we're frustrated in the moment on things, but I mean, NHL fans are frustrated in the moment with officials all the time. Doesn't matter what league you're in, you're going to be frustrated with the officials, and it's good to see that the onus has kind of been taken and done something with.
For sure. I mean, thing we have to accept as coaches up here, right? Like I just talked about my ejection the other night, and I was frustrated because I'll explain it later. But the point I'm making it here is the referees up here, we kind of need them more than they need us, you know? So like you're dealing with what you deal with and you just kind of get what you get. And the league is trying to do a good job with like reviewing things and making sure things get called right. Exactly. So now I want you to honestly tell me if I deserved, even in the slightest way, my ejection the other night, because I just need to know. Truthfully, I don't think so. I don't think anybody would think so, but if we'd like to just tell the fans,
I can be
the listeners
as objective as I can on this situation. Obviously, I'm on the bench with you, but from an objective standpoint, as a coach that I've coached a decent amount of games myself, I can, find solace in the fact that I've never been thrown out of a game, and I feel like I know the line, and I feel like you also know where the line is. Normally, the line realistically is you can't single them out on something. Mm-hmm. You can say something is bad, you can disagree with a call, but as soon as you use an ad hominem remark, whether it's you're fucking terrible or you're bad or you messed up or something like that, that's the line, in my opinion, and that's through years and years of screaming at coaches, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's what I feel like is the line. You cannot attack them ad hominem. You cannot. If you want to attack the call, you can. What happened on Saturday was actually crazy. It was crazy. The fact that
the best part is I looked at you because we had the same refs the night prior that I didn't think particularly did a great job, which goes hand in hand with this story. Mm-hmm. Okay, I didn't think they did a great job the night before. So they call a penalty early that I think is weak. They score right away. I'm unhappy. So I look at Austin. I have not been tossed in 2 years, up until this point, still. So I look at Austin. I go, I might get tossed tonight. Just like frustrated, being a big mouth on the bench, as I can do sometimes. I go, I might get tossed tonight. And he goes, yeah, no, I'm fine with that. So,
and now, I should preface this by saying sometimes, and it's more of a baseball thing, but it makes sense for a coach to get tossed sometimes. That's just a thing that happens for a number of reasons. And you might be listening to this and be like, no, you should never get tossed. You should never.
And that's your opinion.
Whatever. There are times in games where you have to stick up for your players.
Yes.
And you need to show that. And you see it in the NHL all the time. John Tortorella is a perfect example. He's sticking up for his players. Paul Maurice was a guy who yelled at refs all the time because you need to show your players that you have their back. Because yes, at the end of the day, should you accept every call the ref makes and go to the box and not say anything? 100%. But at the same time, everyone is human. And your players being 19 years old, sometimes they just need to know that the guy behind you has their back.
100%.
You're getting fucked. And they're going to let them know that, then that can rally a group. Right?
Yeah,
I think that's kind of not necessarily what happened because we were up 3-1 when you got tossed, which is crazy. I bet you, I want to know how many coaches have ever been tossed up 2 goals. That's actually
probably a pretty low stat. But let me explain how it happened, okay?
Yeah.
Our player, skating up the ice, gets hit awkwardly. It's high. Is it directly to his head? I don't know. But it's rough. It's high. It's out of control. It's not a great hockey play. It's just a big explosion, basically, in the middle of the ice. So they don't call it. My player's down. He's concussed. He's still not skated since. So anyway, as he's down, the ref comes over, and Austin is yelling, head check! And I was like, yeah, it's a head check, like echoing Austin. And he comes over and points at our bench, and he goes, shut your fucking mouths! Like really, exactly like that. Mm-hmm. And I was like, holy Christ. So I was like, your head is huge. Just because the night before they had similar terrible calls. So I said, your head is huge. And then he kind of went to skate away. And I just said, sir, can you come talk to me? He skated to the bench. And I said, I've never seen a worse lack of penalties, a lack of calls in a weekend. And I was saying exactly like I'm saying this now, not even animated. I said, I've never seen a worse lack of penalties in a weekend. And he goes, you're just mad because you fucking lost yesterday. And goes to skate away from our bench. So then I say to him, wow, you're going to label me? To which he turns around and goes, go, get out of here, and just points and kicks me out. I was absolutely shocked. I just kind of looked at Austin. I was like, is this guy fucking serious? That's when I swore. After I was like, is this guy fucking serious? At Austin, he's like, go! So I just sauntered off the bench, and if you rewatch the film, it's kind of hilarious.
Well, it's funny because the Fort Francis announcer commentator doesn't even realize you get kicked out.
Yeah, you can't even tell. I just walk off the bench like quietly, calmly. It's one of the craziest things ever.
Because then I called the other ref over and just to ask him like what he saw, because the one guy basically told us he didn't see the hit. Mm-hmm. Sure, that happens. Okay, I'll talk to the other ref. And as I'm talking to that ref, the former commentator's like, yeah, looks like Carson Johnstone. I get an explanation from the ref, and it's like, well, he left the bench 5 minutes ago, but
he thinks Austin's me on the bench.
Normally we get that just in voice. I've never been mistaken for you body shape.
Physically.
Not two things that really make a lot of sense. But it's brutal too, because again, we laughed after the fact, because again, just like a baseball umpire or just like a baseball manager, when you get tossed, you want to get that
with purpose.
Yeah, you want to get your pound of flesh essentially. You want to be able to say some stuff. You want to be able to have something to say, right?
Please tell him how I feel.
And the fact that you just got just very and you know what, honestly, if that's what the ref was trying to do, fucking good on him, because he got you. Yeah, honestly,
for sure, he got me. If that's what he's trying to do, is just drive me absolutely up the wall by doing that, for sure, he did. But like, I just think that is one of the most unprofessional things. Like, to look at me, you're just mad because you lost yesterday. Like, yeah, of course I'm upset that we lost to the second last place team, and we're one of the least penalized teams and draw some of the most penalties in the league statistically over the past 2 seasons. But for some reason, in the past 2 games, it's been a total opposite of that, and not due to the hockey play, if you actually watch that.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's just how I felt. I'm just sound like a complaining coach right now, but anyhow,
I
it was
think
crazy.
Honestly, like, if you were in that building, I think it does make sense. And the fact, honestly, that we were up 3-1 at the time. That's like the thing that was like, this is wild. You know,
yeah.
Like, I wish that there was a way to look that up. Like, how many coaches have been tossed up 2 in a game before?
Probably
it's definitely
not a lot.
Not that many.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess we've been going at her for a good amount here. Anything more you want to talk about?
No, I think that's pretty good. We got a good soft white underbelly. A lot happened this week. You know, a lot of stuff. The soft white underbelly is more about like the crap that happens throughout a week in hockey. You know.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what we're covering here. So, great as always. It was nice to chat with Kyle there, and finally put a face to his name. I've never actually seen him. Right, we've talked about him. He's helped us with some recruiting and stuff. But good guy, knowledgeable, ambitious. So excited to talk to him again at some point.
Yeah, Kyle's been honestly huge for our program. Honestly, like Nolan Palmer is at our program because of Kyle.
Nice.
And Matthew Spencer Dahl is at our program because of Kyle. So
it's 2 big names right there.
Yeah, it's huge.
And the Suluco Bombers.
Yeah, big time. Well, for Carson Johnson, I'm Austin Hoy. Thank you for listening to the Pursuit Hockey discussion for the week of March. I guess it'll be the 15th, March 15th.
All right. We'll see you next time.
Right on. See you next time.